In a bone-chilling, icy rain, Daniel Ross, a 35-year-old single dad, was walking his daughter Lily home when he heard a quiet sob near the deserted bus stop. He found a young woman, Aria, in a wheelchair, soaking wet, shivering violently, and clutching a torn bag. Daniel asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" She shook her head, lips blue. They left me here." Lily rushed to offer comfort, whispering, "Dad will help." Daniel made a quick decision. "Come with me. It's not safe here." He didn't know the truth about this abandoned girl would shatter his quiet life. The cold rain slashed sideways, turning the already miserable bus stop into a scene of utter desolation. Daniel quickly guided Aria, the mysterious girl in the wheelchair, under the meager shelter of a nearby overhang. He had spent his last decade navigating the world as a provider and protector for his daughter Lily, but this felt different. It felt like rescuing someone from a shipwreck. Aria looked barely out of her teens, perhaps 22 or 23. Her features were delicate and beautiful, but her eyes held a profound emptiness, the complete exhaustion of a person who had given up the fight. Despite her visible suffering, she tried to maintain a fragile politeness. "Sir, please. You don't have to help me." Her chattering teeth and the violent tremor running through her hands betrayed her attempt at strength. Daniel ignored her protest and focused on the practicalities. "What's your name?" Her voice was a barely audible whisper. "Aria." Daniel quickly stripped off his own worn but warm waterproof jacket and offered it to her. Lily, whose heart was always softer than her father's, quickly unwrapped her favorite, brightly colored scarf, a gift from Daniel, and carefully draped it around Aria's shoulders. The simple act of kindness caused Aria's composure to crack. Daniel's engineer's eye quickly scanned the scene. He realized this wasn't an accidental abandonment. This was calculated. Aria's wrists were scraped, and there were faint, bruising finger marks, a sign that someone had recently grabbed her tightly. Her canvas bag, which contained only a few meager belongings, had a cruel, undeniable message scrawled across it in thick, black marker. "No longer needed." The sight made Daniel's jaw clench with cold fury. Who, in a decent society, would treat another human being, especially one unable to walk, with such brutal callousness? Who would leave someone like this in the freezing rain? He knelt beside the wheelchair, trying to keep his voice level. "Who left you here, Aria?" Aria flinched. She looked away, her eyes filling with a fresh wave of terror. I don't want to go back there." Daniel immediately understood. She wasn't just left. She was escaping. She was terrified of whoever or whatever there represented. The bus stop remained empty. The rain intensified, and the temperature continued to plummet. Daniel knew he couldn't leave her. The risks were immense, for both her and himself, but his innate sense of morality wouldn't allow him to calculate the cost. He made the decision that committed him to a dangerous unknown path. He pushed back to his feet. "We're leaving. Get in the car. I'm taking you to my place for the night, at least until the rain stops." Aria's eyes widened in panicked protest. "No, I can't. I don't want to bother anyone." She was convinced she was a burden. Lily, holding Aria's hand, provided the necessary counterpoint. "You won't bother us, sis. Anyone who leaves you is the bad person." This simple, unconditional acceptance from a 7-year-old broke through Aria's long-suppressed walls. She began to cry uncontrollably for the first time, a wrenching, deep sob that echoed the trauma she had endured. She had held it in for too long. Daniel knew the time for talk was over. He carefully unbuckled the safety strap. He looked down at his daughter, his eyes conveying a silent promise of protection, and then gently lifted Aria into his arms. She was startlingly light, a testament to her poor health and lack of care. As Daniel secured her in his small, practical sedan, Aria instinctively grasped his soaked shirt, her body trembling against his chest. She spoke into the wet fabric, her voice weak but clear. "This is the first time anyone ever came back for me." The burden of her unspoken past settled heavily onto Daniel's shoulders. He drove toward his small, safe harbor, knowing he had just invited something powerful and possibly dangerous into his quiet life. Daniel navigated the slick, narrow streets to the modest apartment building where he and Lily lived. His home was simple, but his priority was always warmth and safety. He carried Aria inside, settled her on the living room sofa, and immediately set about making a sanctuary for her. He quickly pulled out his warmest duvet, brewed a strong mug of hot tea with extra honey, and found a clean, dry set of Lily's old, oversized sweatpants and a thick hoodie for Aria. Aria was overwhelmed. She kept whispering apologies, her head bowed. I I really don't deserve this help. Daniel stopped what he was doing and knelt in front of her, forcing her to meet his gaze. His eyes were kind, but firm. Nobody deserves to be left in the rain, Aria, and no one is undeserving of kindness. Lily, seeing her dad's protective seriousness, wordlessly brought her favorite plush bunny and placed it carefully in Aria's lap. Aria managed a faint, genuine laugh as she stroked the toy. It was the first sound of joy Daniel had heard from her. When Daniel pressed her gently for details, trying to understand her situation, Aria's answers were vague, edged with pain. I had an accident. Since then, they just started seeing me as a burden. Daniel's blood boiled. He had to clench his hands to control his anger. You are a person, Aria, not an object to be discarded when you break. Aria looked at him for a long moment, a depth of gratitude and tentative hope reflecting in her eyes for the first time. Later, during their dinner, a simple home-cooked meal of pasta and meatballs, Aria struggled. Her hands were weak, and the simple task of lifting the fork was exhausting. Daniel instinctively took over. He spoon-fed her slowly, patiently, occasionally pausing to check on Lily's storytelling. Aria suddenly burst into fresh tears, covering her face with her forearm. I'm so sorry. I'm not used to being treated kindly. Daniel felt a strange ache in his chest, a mix of rage and pity. What kind of existence had someone forced upon this young woman to make her believe she was not worthy of a simple meal? As the night deepened, Aria's condition worsened. A persistent, rattling cough set in, and she struggled to catch her breath. Daniel, now acting completely as a caregiver, quickly and gently positioned her on her side, checking her breathing, his movements practiced and efficient. Every deliberate, selfless action he performed chipped away at the defensive wall Aria had built around her heart, the revelation of the missing heiress. Daniel decided to check on Aria one last time before going to bed. He went to retrieve an extra, warmer blanket. As he moved her small, torn bag, a slick, folded piece of paper slipped out onto the floor. It was a police missing person report. Daniel's heart pounded. He picked it up, his eyes scanning the details. The photo was unmistakably Aria, though she looked healthier, almost radiant in the picture. The contact information was not a relative, but a lawyer, and printed boldly at the bottom, signed by the legal representative, were the words, the Roycastle family. Daniel's world tilted. The Roycastles. Not just wealthy, but Roycastle, one of the oldest, richest, and most influential families in the entire state, known for their financial holdings and rigid public image. Daniel slowly looked back at the frail girl sleeping on his couch. Aria wasn't just a disabled girl left by her relatives. She was the daughter of a billionaire dynasty. When he finally gathered his composure, he quietly approached her. Aria, who exactly are you out there? Aria instantly woke up, the old fear returning to her eyes. She whispered, her lip trembling, I don't want to go back to a place where they treat me like a ghost. Daniel realized the Roycastles didn't want her back because they loved her. They wanted her back for her name, for control. Daniel looked down at her, the fragile, broken heiress who chose the cold bus stop over her mansion. He knelt again, his gaze piercing through her fear. You are not a burden here. You are allowed to exist. Slightly calmer, but prepared for the danger to come, Daniel spent the night researching the Roycastle family. He learned that Aria's full name was Aria Serafina Roycastle, the youngest heiress to the family's global real estate and finance empire. Her accident, 6 months prior, had left her with temporary spinal damage and significant nerve weakness in her hands, a prognosis the family found unacceptable for public display. Daniel felt a cold, deep revulsion for the calculated cruelty of the ultra-wealthy. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a tentative, hopeful light on Daniel's small apartment. Daniel insisted on taking Aria out, pushing her wheelchair slowly through the quiet park nearby. Aria looked around, shielding her eyes from the gentle sunlight. A small, exquisite smile finally touched her lips, a beautiful, soft expression that eased the worry lines on Daniel's face. It was the first sound of life he had seen in her. However, their peace was short-lived. As they approached Daniel's building, he stopped cold. Three identical, imposing black SUVs were parked outside, looking starkly out of place against the faded brick. Before he could react, the doors burst open. Three impeccably dressed men, clearly from the Roycastle security or legal team, rushed toward them. A tall, stiff man, who introduced himself as Mr. Vance, the family's lead asset manager, stepped forward, his face a mask of cold annoyance. "There you are, Miss Roycastle. Finally. You've caused the family far too much trouble and financial exposure." Daniel immediately moved the wheelchair behind him, placing his body squarely between Aria and the men. His voice was low, laced with a dangerous calm. "You will tell me what you mean by financial exposure." Vance haughtily dismissed Daniel with a flick of his wrist. "She is a liability. Her prognosis prevents her from fulfilling the duties required of her inheritance. We were in the process of transferring her care and assets into a disability trust at the hospital and acquiring her signature on an inheritance waiver. She ran, thereby violating the terms and disrupting a major portfolio reorganization. Now come on, we're taking you home." Daniel's control snapped. He lunged forward, grabbing Vance by the lapels of his expensive suit and pulling him down until their faces were inches apart. Daniel's eyes, usually warm, were now sharp with focused rage. "You call her a liability? You calculated her value and found her wanting? And you people left her at a bus stop in the pouring rain to force her hand?" Vance stammered, genuinely shocked by the ferocity of the single dad's attack. We just had to ensure she didn't interfere with the legal documents. It was to protect the estate, just so she wouldn't cause any more trouble for the board." Aria began to cry behind Daniel, but he immediately turned back, his tone shifting instantly from thunder to reassurance. "Aria, you are not the trouble. You are the victim here. They are the criminals." The Roycastle men tried to force their way past Daniel to push Aria's wheelchair away. They were strong, but Daniel's protective fury lent him an unexpected strength. Daniel scooped Aria into his arms and retreated into his tiny apartment. "You are not going anywhere you don't want to go, Aria. I'm right here. They can't touch you inside." The genius engineer. Suddenly, one of the men, a younger legal assistant, paused, staring intently at Daniel's face as Daniel stood guard by the door. He was holding a high-end tablet, and a flash of recognition crossed his face. "Wait a minute. That face, I know him. Vance, hold on. Is that Daniel Ross, the engineer?" The tension in the hallway instantly changed from a simple retrieval to high-stakes conflict. Whispers erupted among the Roycastle team. "Ross, the one who invented the quantum firewall? The one who saved the Cyber City data center during the catastrophic fire? The former chief engineer of Omni Dynamics who vanished 4 years ago?" The news hit them like a physical blow. Daniel wasn't just a poor single dad. He was Daniel Ross, the once celebrated engineering prodigy whose name was legendary in the tech circles that overlapped with the Roycastle empire. He had walked away from a salary measured in millions to care for his sick wife and then his daughter Lily. His sudden reappearance, coupled with the scandalous truth of the Roycastle heiress, paralyzed them. They could no longer treat him as a simple obstacle to be brushed aside. Vance, regaining his composure, tried to appeal to Daniel's former corporate self. "Mr. Ross, you understand business. This is a simple matter of asset protection. Sign the transfer documents, Aria gets lifetime care, and you get a substantial consultant fee for your silence." Aria, still trembling in Daniel's arms, was appalled by the transactional nature of the offer. Daniel lowered Aria back into the chair and faced Vance, his stance wide and unyielding. "I may understand business, Mr. Vance, and what I see here is elder abuse disguised as corporate prudence. You're trading a human being for tax leverage." He pointed to the door. "You have 2 minutes to leave before I call the press and expose the Roycastle family's moral bankruptcy." The The Roycastle team, terrified of the public relations disaster Daniel, with his former corporate status and undeniable credibility, could unleash, hesitated. Vance made one final desperate move, grabbing Aria's arm to drag her away. Daniel reacted with lightning speed. He positioned himself, his gaze hardening like steel. "I said, touch her. I dare you. You will regret the moment you decided to lay a hand on this child of light." From the bedroom, Lily, woken by the commotion, screamed with heartbreaking clarity, "Daddy, don't let them hurt my sister Aria. She's my family." Daniel looked at Lily, then back at the intruders. The protective instinct of a father protecting two vulnerable girls ignited a fierce, unyielding resolve in his eyes. He was no longer a civilian. He was a sentinel, ready to fight for his home. Overwhelmed by Daniel's unexpected identity and moral authority, the Roycastle team retreated, leaving only a parting threat. "She doesn't have the right to choose her future, Ross. This isn't over." Aria was shaking uncontrollably, the trauma reasserting itself. They will come back. They always win." Daniel knelt down to her level, ignoring the mess, the risk, and the threats. "They might win lawsuits, Aria, but they will never win against love. If they come back, they'll have to go through me." Aria looked at him with an emotion she had never directed at anyone before. The total, pure adoration of a soul who had finally found true sanctuary. Aria clutched his hand, her body still trembling, and whispered with a broken but determined conviction, "For the first time, I want to live. I want to live with you." In the days that followed the confrontation, Daniel quietly integrated Aria into their small world. He arranged a temporary official stay, fully aware of the legal and moral complexity he had invited. The police report gave them temporary legal cover, claiming she was under the protective care of a private citizen after being found in distress. Their apartment was cramped, a stark contrast to the sterile, echoing halls of the Roycastle mansion Aria had described, but it was bursting with the warmth of genuine connection. Lily immediately took on the role of Aria's cheerful small companion. She would decorate Aria's wheelchair with brightly colored stickers, tell her endless stories about school, and affectionately called her Princess Sis. Aria began to thaw. She laughed more easily, spoke more openly, and, most importantly, slept without the recurring night terrors that had plagued her. Daniel, using his engineering precision and innate patience, started simple physical therapy. He never pushed her, he only encouraged. His approach was not about fixing her, but about helping her reclaim control. He taught her exercises to strengthen her grip and core muscles, treating her recovery with the same meticulous, problem-solving focus he once applied to multi-million-dollar data systems. One afternoon, while Daniel was cheering her on, Aria managed to stand independently for a brief, glorious 10 seconds. It was a monumental achievement, a defiance of the fate the Roycastles had assigned her. Tears streamed down her face, not of pain, but of powerful joy. Daniel immediately wrapped his strong arms around her shoulders in a gentle, supportive embrace. "I am so proud of you, Aria. So incredibly proud." Aria leaned her head against his chest, her hands tentatively touching his flannel shirt. Her voice was barely a trembling exhale. "I've never been proud of myself until I met you. They only saw what I couldn't do. You only see what I might." Daniel's face flushed a deep crimson. It was the first time anyone had ever spoken to him that way, honestly, vulnerably, and with absolute sincerity. The financial line in the sand. A few days later, Aria managed to discreetly access a small, non-traceable account she maintained. She wanted to relieve Daniel of his financial struggle, the low-wage delivery job he worked to stay close to Lily. She transferred a substantial sum, enough to pay off his mortgage and secure Lily's college fund, into a hidden account for him. She waited until Lily was asleep before approaching him. "Daniel, please, I know you struggled. Use this. It's a gift, no strings attached. It just makes things easier." Daniel looked at the bank statement, his eyes registering the staggering number, then back at Aria. He gently pushed the paper away. "Aria, I left my career because I realized money can't buy time, and it certainly can't buy genuine connection. If I take your money now, I become what the Roycastles are, a transactional relationship. He took her hands, his touch warm and firm. I chose to be poor so I could be rich in what matters. I want to earn my way with you, not shortcut it with your fortune. The money complicates this. I don't want your billions, I want your hand. Aria was utterly floored. For the first time, her money was irrelevant. His rejection of her wealth was the most profound act of love she had ever experienced. It confirmed that he saw her soul, not her ledger. The meaning of home. Daniel started teaching Aria simple life skills. How to make Lily's favorite scrambled eggs, how to patch a pair of jeans, how to change a tire. A joke since she couldn't use her hands fully, but the lesson was about self-reliance. He treated her not as an invalid, but as a student, a partner. One evening they sat on the small couch, looking through a worn photo album of Lily's life. Aria looked at a picture of Daniel, exhausted but smiling, holding baby Lily. I remember my childhood, Aria murmured, tears misting her eyes. It was beautiful and expensive, but my parents' smiles in the photos were always for the camera, never just for me. She touched the photo of Lily and Daniel. Your smile is real. Boy toy, ho un kung ban, koi vanki Lily kichuyan trong hak. Aria looked at the scene, the chaotic mix of homework, Lily's spilled milk, Daniel's tired but happy face, and silent tears welled up. This tiny, noisy, imperfect apartment. This is the family I dreamed about my whole life. The mansion was a museum. This is a home. Daniel's eyes met hers across the table. His response was quiet, a simple invitation. Then stay. Don't just be a guest here. Be the reason this place is home. The single word, spoken with such deep conviction, was nearly enough to make Aria collapse into his embrace from across the table. It was the only promise she had ever truly believed. Daniel reached across the table, his hand warm and calloused, and gently touched her cheek. Aria, you are not abandoned anymore. You are chosen, never again. A month passed. The progress in Aria's life was nothing short of miraculous. Her ability to stand independently had increased to 20 seconds. She was eating on her own, managing basic self-care, and her confidence was skyrocketing. The girl Daniel found at the bus stop was replaced by a woman fighting fiercely for her future. The Roycastle family, realizing their window of opportunity was closing, sent a high-powered legal team to finalize her return. They arrived with a restraining order against Daniel, painting him as a kidnapper, exploiting an incapacitated heiress. Aria, using her newly acquired strength, stood up from her wheelchair for a full 30 seconds, supporting herself against the wall. She looked down at the lawyers, her posture one of absolute defiance. Aria's own personal lawyer, whom Daniel had insisted she contact, confirmed the Roycastle's bluff. Aria sat back down, composed. The lawyers presented their terms, detailing the vast wealth she would inherit upon signing the papers. Aria looked them straight in the eye, her voice clear and strong. I choose this family. I will sign nothing. Daniel stood beside her, his hand firmly holding hers, a silent pillar of support. The lead attorney, shocked, threatened to have her disinherited, stripping her of every cent. Aria smiled, a serene, powerful expression, utterly without fear. Take it all. I only want to live, not be treated as a valuable commodity. My inheritance is my freedom. The Roycastle lawyers, defeated by the combined genius of Daniel Ross and Aria's newfound will, were forced to retreat in total failure. That evening, Daniel and Lily celebrated Aria's progress with a small ceremony, the official 30-second standing graduation. They presented her with a handmade paper medal. Aria laughed deeply, her heart overflowing with a happiness she'd never known. Daniel looked at her, his gaze long and searching, and finally confessed what was in his heart. Aria, you are the part of my life I didn't know I was missing. I thought I was only a father, but you taught me I can be more. Aria reached up and placed her hand softly on his cheek, her eyes reflecting the love and hope she felt. And you are the reason I wanted to keep living. You gave me a future worth fighting for. Lily, completely absorbed in the moment, wrapped her arms around both of them. Daddy, can Sister Aria stay forever and ever? Aria turned to Daniel, eyes long and deep. Daniel nodded slowly, a profound sense of peace settling over him. This home always has room for you, forever and ever. Final image. The three of them settled onto the worn sofa, Aria leaning her head securely on Daniel's shoulder, Lily asleep peacefully in her lap. A new family forged from the cruelest of rainy nights. Love, not fortune, had finally won. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to NL Touching Stories.